Ancient texts across the world contain warnings about creatures that were deliberately hidden from us. These are not just scary stories, they are forbidden knowledge, beings deemed too dangerous for human eyes to ever see. We are about to uncover the 22 most terrifying of these entities, from giants born of fallen angels to shapeshifters that live among us. By the end of this journey, you will understand the chilling reasons these creatures were concealed and what they reveal about our deepest fears. What happens when a legend is created not to entertain, but to protect us from a truth we cannot handle? Why would cultures across the globe agree that some things are simply not meant to be seen? We will answer these questions as we explore a hidden history of cosmic warnings and primal terror. What kind of truth do you think is so dangerous it must be locked away in myth? That powerful idea of knowledge too dangerous to possess echoes across countless cultures and ages. We see it in the very first story of the Bible, where eating from the tree of knowledge exiles humanity from paradise. We find it in the legendary lost libraries of the ancient world, where certain scrolls were said to be sealed shut, not by locks, but by solemn oaths. The common thread is a profound warning, a line in the sand drawn by our ancestors. They were not simply trying to protect us from physical harm. The true danger of these forbidden creatures often lies in what they do to the human mind, to the soul. To see them is to have your understanding of reality shattered. Your sanity might not survive the encounter because what you witness contradicts everything you thought you knew about the world. For an entire civilization, the existence of such a being could topple religious doctrines, unravel social order, and leave a society spiritually adrift. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche captured this unsettling exchange perfectly when he wrote, "If you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." It is a two-way street. In seeking out these hidden truths, we are fundamentally changed by them, and not always for the better. This is the core of the terror. The reasons these 22 specific entities were locked away in legend are as complex and varied as the monsters themselves. Some were hidden to preserve our peace of mind, others to maintain cosmic balance, and a few because their very existence is a truth we are not equipped to handle. We are now about to cross that threshold and look into that abyss. That warning against crossing cosmic boundaries finds its first and perhaps most chilling example in the giants of old. The book of Genesis offers only a brief, haunting glimpse of them, stating simply that the Nephilim were on the earth in those days when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The text is sparse, but its implications are staggering. Who were these sons of God, and why was their union with human women such a catastrophic event? Ancient texts outside the traditional Bible dare to fill in the terrifying details. The Book of Enoch, a text revered in many ancient Jewish and Christian traditions, identifies these sons of God as watchers, a group of angels who fell from grace. 200 of them, led by a being named Simjaza, made a conscious, rebellious pact. They descended upon Mount Hermon, and they took human wives for themselves, choosing from among them all. This was not a story of love, but of a deliberate cosmic treason. The offspring of this forbidden union were the Nephilim, and they were unlike anything the world had ever seen. The name itself is thought to mean the fallen ones, or more literally, those who cause others to fall. They were giants, not just in physical stature, but in their capacity for violence and their unnatural knowledge. The Nephilim began to devour all the labor of men, and when the people could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against humanity itself. They sinned against birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish, and consumed the flesh of one another and drank the blood. This was a world plunged into absolute chaos, corrupted from its very foundations, but the transgression went far deeper than mere physical violence. The fallen watchers did more than just take wives. They broke a sacred trust. They revealed to humanity secrets they were never meant to possess. The Book of Enoch lists forbidden arts like metalworking to create swords and armor, the use of cosmetics and jewelry for seduction, and the dark knowledge of witchcraft, root cutting, and astrology. This was knowledge bestowed not for enlightenment, but for corruption, twisting the natural order and accelerating the world's descent into wickedness. The existence of the Nephilim was the final straw, the undeniable proof that the boundary between the divine and the human had been shattered. Their very being was a pollutant, a living, breathing abomination that threatened to unravel creation itself. This is why the Great Flood was sent, not merely to punish humanity, but to scrub the earth clean of this hybrid race and their corrupting influence. The story of the Nephilim is the ultimate forbidden creature narrative. They were hidden not because they were too terrifying to look at, but because their existence represented a truth so dangerous it demanded the world be reset. They are a permanent warning etched into our oldest stories, a lesson about the peril of reaching for a knowledge and a power that we are not spiritually prepared to wield. What other creatures were deemed too dangerous to exist, not just by one culture, but by the very fabric of reality? While the Nephilim were a catastrophic mingling of the divine and human, other forbidden entities were born from the very elements of the world itself. The vast, silent deserts of ancient Arabia held a profound and terrifying secret, a race of beings known as the Djinn, created from a smokeless, scorching fire long before the first human walked the earth. The Djinn exist in a dimension just beyond our own, a parallel world that touches ours in unseen ways. Forget the comical, wish-granting genie from a lamp. The true Djinn of lore are forces of raw, unpredictable power. They are capricious, possessing their own societies, religions, and free will, utterly unbound by human concepts of good and evil. Among their kinds, the Ifrit stand out as particularly fearsome. An Ifrit is a class of Djinn renowned for its towering strength, cunning, and a deep-seated malevolence. To seek out an Ifrit to try and command one was an act of supreme folly, strictly forbidden by the wise. These beings were not monsters to be hunted, but intelligent, volatile powers to be avoided at all costs. They represent the untamed, chaotic heart of the natural world, a stark reminder that not all consciousness in the universe wishes us well. This is not merely folklore, it is a warning embedded in scripture. The Quran explicitly cautions believers against seeking the friendship or assistance of the Djinn, solidifying their status as forbidden knowledge. Their very existence challenges the foundation of our reality. It suggests that we share our world with invisible, sentient life forms that watch, interact, and operate on a plane we were never meant to perceive. To see a Djinn, to truly perceive one, is to have the veil torn away, forcing you to accept that you are never truly alone in an empty room. This unsettling idea of elemental beings, born from the fabric of the world, leads us to another creature forged in the heart of the earth itself. From the scorching elemental fire of the Djinn, we travel to the chilling, salt-soaked shores of the Orkney Islands. Here, the sea itself gives birth to a horror so potent that its very gaze was a curse. The Nuckelavee is a creature forged in the heart of a storm, a monstrous fusion of horse and man so grotesque that its appearance was a harbinger of ruin. It was said to be utterly skinless, its raw, black muscles and yellow veins exposed to the salt air, and the breath that heaved from its single, gaping nostril carried the stench of plague and decay. To lay eyes upon the Nuckelavee was not just a fright, it was a catastrophic event. Folklore insisted that a single glance from this thing could cause fields of crops to wither overnight and healthy livestock to drop dead in their pens. This was not a monster you hunted. It was a walking, galloping natural disaster that you prayed to never encounter. Its forbidden status was brutally practical. The Nuckelavee was the physical embodiment of the blights that could wipe out an entire island community, a personification of the potato famines and the livestock plagues that meant starvation and death. Knowing its form was to know the shape of suffering itself, a truth too terrible to dwell upon. The legends were very clear. Only the power of the sea god, the Mither o' the sea, could temporarily restrain this abomination, and even speaking its name aloud was considered a dangerous gamble. The Nuckelavee represents a terrifying class of forbidden beings, those that are inextricably woven into the fabric of natural catastrophe. Its hybrid form, a twisted marriage of land and sea, reflects the specific environmental terrors of the people who created the myth. It is a warning carved from fear of the unknown depths and the uncontrollable forces that could erase a community without a moment's notice. This theme of hybrid horrors, of things that should not be combined, echoes across other cultures in even more unsettling ways. The terror of a monster hiding in plain sight finds its ultimate expression in the tangled jungles and quiet villages of the Philippines. Here, the Aswang is not a beast from a distant mountain or a deep sea, but a predator that lives next door. This shape-shifting creature is the essence of forbidden knowledge, because to know its true form is to lose all trust in your own community. An Aswang could be your friendly neighbor, the quiet farmer, or even a family member. By day, they appear entirely human, blending seamlessly into society. But by night, they transform, often into a dog, a pig, or a large bird, to hunt for their preferred prey, the most vulnerable among us, pregnant women and the unborn. The true horror of the Aswang is not just its grotesque feeding habits, but the profound paranoia its legend sows. Folklore developed specific, forbidden tests to identify one. You were told to look beneath a suspected person, for an Aswang's reflection in water would appear upside down. Or you might be advised to watch for their unusually long, tongue-like proboscis that could slip through floorboards to silently feast on a sleeping victim. But this knowledge was a double-edged sword. To possess it was to live in constant suspicion, seeing monstrous potential in every unusual glance or odd behavior. This is why the Aswang was so dangerous. Its lore was a social control mechanism of the most insidious kind. It enforced community norms, warning against strange behaviors and fostering collective vigilance. Yet it also had a terrible power to destroy from within, leading to false accusations, mob violence, and the tearing apart of the very social fabric it was meant to protect. The Aswang embodies a fear far more intimate than a giant or a sea monster. It is the chilling realization that the greatest threat may not come from the outside wilderness, but from the person sharing a meal with you. It forces us to ask, what is more terrifying, the monster in the dark or the monster smiling at you in the light of day? This blurring of lines between the human and the inhuman raises a disturbing new question. What if the predator is not hiding among us, but is an inseparable part of us? That same fear of the predator hidden within a familiar form takes on a more poetic, yet equally deadly, shape in the misty forests of Japan. Deep within the ancient woods, a different kind of hunter waits, one whose web is spun from both silk and illusion. The Jorogumo, whose name translates chillingly to the binding bride, is a spider yokai of immense age and cunning. This is no mere giant arachnid, but a being that has mastered the art of deception. After living for centuries, it gains the power to shapeshift, most often taking the form of an impossibly beautiful woman. She is the very image of desire, often seen playing a haunting melody on a biwa lute near a secluded waterfall or a lonely mountain pass. Her purpose is singular and grim, to enchant lonely travelers, drawing them in with promises of affection and companionship before binding them in silken threads and consuming them. The danger of the Jorogumo is far more than a physical threat. It is a spiritual and psychological peril. She represents the forbidden knowledge of how easily our own desires can be turned against us. The tales are explicit warnings to young men, advising extreme caution when encountering a stunning woman in a remote, unnatural setting. Why is she alone? Why does her beauty seem so out of place? The Jorogumo's forbidden nature lies in this profound deception, the terrifying idea that what we find most beautiful and alluring can be a mask for a soul-consuming horror. To know of her is to be forced to question reality itself, to doubt your own senses and the intentions behind a kind smile. Her web is not just one of sticky silk, but a trap of illusion, ensnaring the mind long before the body is bound. This theme of beauty as a deadly camouflage is a universal caution, echoing from the siren songs of Greek myth to the vampire's seductive gaze. The Jorogumo forces a confrontation with a deeply unsettling question. How do we protect ourselves from the very things we are most drawn to? This dance with deceptive beauty makes the brutal honesty of our next creature all the more shocking. Where the Jorogumo uses beauty as a weapon, the Wendigo of Algonquian belief offers no such deception. It is the stark, brutal truth of what extreme hunger can create. Born from the harsh, unforgiving winters of the North American wilderness, the Wendigo is not a creature that simply stalks the snow. It is a spiritual disease, a monstrous transformation that occurs when a person, driven to the brink of starvation, commits the ultimate act of survival and despair, consuming human flesh. This single, forbidden act shatters the soul, twisting the person into something utterly inhuman. The transformation is both physical and spiritual. A Wendigo is described as a gaunt, skeletal giant, its skin stretched taut over its bones, ash-gray and cold as death. Its eyes glow with a feral hunger, and its lipless mouth is filled with sharp, yellowed teeth. Most terrifying of all, the Wendigo's hunger is eternal and insatiable. No matter how much it eats, it only grows hungrier, a walking, ravenous embodiment of greed and consumption. This is the core of its forbidden nature. To know of the Wendigo is to acknowledge the monster that any person could become under the right, or rather the wrong, circumstances. It is a taboo carved not just from fear of a monster in the woods, but from the chilling recognition of the savagery lurking within our own hearts. The legend served as a powerful social prohibition, a cultural firebreak against the unthinkable act of cannibalism during desperate winters. The knowledge was a warning, a story told to remind everyone of the line that must never be crossed, for crossing it meant losing your humanity forever. This concept is so potent that modern psychology has a term for it, Wendigo psychosis, describing a rare but documented cultural fixation with cannibalism. The Wendigo is forbidden because it holds up a mirror to the darkest potential of the human spirit. It forces us to ask, what are we truly capable of when everything is taken from us? This terrifying reflection of our own inner darkness finds a strange and ancient counterpart in a creature that is nothing but darkness itself. The stark terror of the Wendigo reflects a monster born from within. But what if the true horror lies in something so vast and alien that it dwarfs our very concept of evil? H.P. Lovecraft gave this fear a name, a modern legend that has come to define the ultimate forbidden truth. Cthulhu is not a creature you can fight or flee from. It is an idea that shatters minds. This great priest of the ancient old ones lies dreaming, not dead, in a sunken city called Arlaye beneath the Pacific Ocean. Its form is a blasphemous mixture of a humanoid, a dragon, and an octopus, but this description fails utterly to convey the reality. To see Cthulhu is not to see a monster. It is to witness a geometry that defies the laws of our universe, a scale of existence so immense that the human brain has no framework to process it. The knowledge of Cthulhu is lethal because it comes with the simultaneous realization of our own cosmic insignificance. Lovecraft himself wrote that the most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. Cthulhu is the storm in that sea, a truth so colossal that to perceive it is to have your sanity unravel at the seams. This entity is forbidden not by any ancient text or tribal taboo, but by the fundamental limits of our own biology. Our minds are simply too small, too fragile, to hold the reality of such a being without breaking. This is why artists and sailors who glimpse the risen city of Arlaye in the stories are driven instantly, irrevocably mad. They are not frightened, they are fundamentally broken, their understanding of a safe, orderly universe replaced by the screaming chaos of the cosmos. Cthulhu represents the final, terrifying category of forbidden creature, one that is hidden from us not out of malice, but by the simple, merciful fact that we are not built to see it. The danger of a power that can warp reality itself takes a distinctly malevolent form in the ancient Sanskrit epics. We now encounter the Rakshasa, a class of demonic beings whose very existence is a lesson in the corruption of spiritual might. These are not mere monsters of flesh and blood, but formidable entities born from the cosmic breath of the creator god Brahma, originally intended to be protectors of the waters. They fell from that noble purpose, becoming the ultimate antagonists in epic struggles like the Ramayana. A Rakshasa's greatest weapon is its mastery of Maya, the profound concept of cosmic illusion. They are shapeshifters of the highest order, capable of assuming any form to deceive, infiltrate, and destroy. One moment, they might appear as a beloved friend or a majestic animal. The next, they reveal their true, terrifying visage, often with multiple arms, fanged mouths, and eyes burning with malice. Their knowledge was considered forbidden not because it was hidden, but because it was actively corrosive. To study the ways of a Rakshasa, to seek to understand their command over illusion, was to walk a razor's edge. The risk was not merely physical death, but spiritual annihilation. You would be inviting a power that thrives on ego and malevolence into your own consciousness, a force that would inevitably detach your abilities from any sense of morality. This is the dark side of ascetic power. In Hindu tradition, intense meditation and penance could grant a person supernatural boons. The Rakshasas, like their king Ravana, were often supreme ascetics who had gained immense power through tapasya, or spiritual austerities. Yet they wielded this hard-won power for selfish, cruel, and destructive ends. They would disrupt sacred rituals, desecrate temples, and torment the pious, not out of mindless rage, but with intelligent, calculated malice. The Rakshasa embodies a terrifying truth that great power, when utterly untethered from a moral compass, becomes a force of absolute corruption. It is the ultimate forbidden fruit, the knowledge that allows you to reshape the world to your will, only to find that your will has been twisted into something monstrous. Their legacy is a permanent warning against the pursuit of power for its own sake. The illusory world of the Rakshasa, a realm where nothing is as it seems, forces us to confront a difficult question about our own reality. The Rakshasa's mastery of illusion reveals a world where reality is a fragile construct, but some truths are as brutally elemental as the earth cracking open. Deep within the volcanic peaks of the Andes, the Mapuche people envisioned a horror born not from deception, but from the planet's raw, molten heart. The Cherufe is a creature of magma and crystal, a living embodiment of the volcano's hunger. It did not simply dwell within the fiery mountains, it was the mountain's malevolent soul, a being of such immense and evil power that it could command the very ground to shake and the sky to rain ash and fire. To know of the Cherufe was to accept a terrifying reality that the world itself could be a predatory force. This was not an indifferent nature, but one that was actively, viciously hostile, demanding a terrible price for its temporary peace. The knowledge of this creature was forbidden not because it was secret, but because it was a truth too devastating to live with. It meant that the ground you built your home upon, the mountain that provided you with water, could at any moment awaken with a conscious desire to destroy you. The legends say the Cherufe craved human flesh, and that only a sacrificial offering, often a young maiden, thrown into the fiery crater could sate its appetite and prevent an eruption. This was the ultimate forbidden pact, an understanding that human life was merely a currency to pay off a planetary debt. The Cherufe represents a primal fear so profound it shaped entire cultural practices, forcing a confrontation with a nature that is not just dangerous, but actively and intelligently evil. It forces us to ask which is more terrifying, a monster that hides in the shadows, or a monster that is the shadow cast by the entire world. The ultimate taboo of the gaze finds its purest expression in the three sisters known as the Gorgons. We often remember Medusa, but she was just one part of a terrifying trio, a family of monsters so visually devastating that their very faces were a death sentence. Imagine not a beast you could fight with a sword, but a horror where the act of perception itself is the weapon. Their hair was a writhing nest of live, venomous snakes, and their eyes held a power so absolute that to meet them was to be instantly transformed into cold, unseeing stone. This was not a magical curse in the way we often think of it. It was a fundamental rewriting of reality upon a single, fatal glance. The ancient Greeks placed these sisters at the very edge of the known world, beyond the ocean, in the land of night. This was not a random setting. Their home was a geographical warning label, signifying a boundary that no sane person should ever cross. The knowledge of what they looked like was the most forbidden knowledge of all, because to possess it meant you were already dead. This is why the hero Perseus could not face Medusa as a normal warrior. He was armed with gifts from the gods themselves, including a polished shield that served as a mirror. He did not look at her directly, he only ever saw her reflection. His entire strategy was an admission that some truths are too potent to be viewed head-on. The story of Perseus is not just a tale of heroism, it is a manual for surviving the unforgivable sight. The Gorgons represent a fear that goes deeper than physical harm. They embody the terror of a truth so potent that the simple act of witnessing it annihilates the witness. This recurring motif of the lethal gaze appears in legends across the globe, from the basilisk stare to certain depictions of the evil eye, all whispering the same ancient warning that some realities are so powerful, so antithetical to life, that they can only be approached indirectly or not at all. What does it say about our own minds that we invented creatures that can kill us just for looking? Even the darkest legends often have a name, a shape, a story we can use to contain our fear. But what about the things that defy even that? What if the ultimate terror is something that has no name at all? The master of mythology, J.R.R. Tolkien, understood this fear perfectly. In his epic, The Lord of the Rings, he introduces a horror so profound that his wise wizard, Gandalf, pointedly refuses to describe it. After his battle with the Balrog, Gandalf speaks of ancient, fouler things than orcs lurking in the world's deepest foundations, being so primordial that they are, in his own words, nameless. This is not a monster you can sketch or describe to a friend around a campfire. This is the horror of the utterly unclassifiable. These nameless things are the ultimate forbidden knowledge because they exist outside the very systems we use to make sense of our reality, language, and myth. They predate light and dark, good and evil, even the gods of the stories we tell. They are the foundation's foundation, the rot in the world's root, and to learn their name would be to grant them a form, a definition they were never meant to have. Their forbidden status is absolute, a silence more terrifying than any scream. This literary device taps into a primal human anxiety, our deep-seated need to label, categorize, and understand everything we encounter. By presenting a horror that cannot be named, Tolkien is telling us that some parts of existence are fundamentally incompatible with human consciousness. To speak of them is to risk giving them a foothold in our minds, to invite a form of madness that comes from confronting something that simply should not be. These entities challenge the very purpose of language itself, suggesting that some truths are so alien, so antithetical to life, that they are better left buried in the silent, crushing dark. They are the final answer to our quest for knowledge, a chilling reminder that the universe may hold questions for which we are not meant to find the answers. Tolkien's nameless things are horrors without form, but some cultures chose to give their greatest terror a face, one so terrifying it was carved into a cliff for all to see. High on the bluffs overlooking the Mississippi River, a massive, vivid mural once stared down at all who passed. This was the Piasa bird, a creature of Native American legend depicted not to be admired but to be feared. Its image was a permanent public warning. The Piasa was described as a dragon-like beast with the horns of a deer, the face of a man, and the scaly body of a serpent, armed with terrifying claws and vast, leathery wings. According to the stories collected by early European explorers, this monster lived in the cliffs and preyed upon entire villages, carrying people away to its lair. The legend tells of a great chief who, after suffering devastating losses, devised a plan to defeat it. He used himself as bait, and when the Piasa swooped down, his warriors unleashed a volley of poisoned arrows to bring the creature down. But the story did not end with its death. The people then immortalized the Piasa's terrifying likeness on the rock face where it had dwelled. This was not an act of tribute. It was an act of containment and control. The image served as a powerful visual deterrent. To see that painting was to understand a simple, brutal message. This is a place of danger, be warned. The knowledge of the Piasa was a communal secret, but it was a forbidden knowledge of a unique kind. You were not supposed to be curious about the creature, you were supposed to be afraid of it. The mural was not an invitation to explore, but a command to avoid. It transformed the cliff face itself into a forbidden territory, a place marked by a history of predation and death. This use of art as a warning system is a profound cultural practice. It takes an abstract, terrifying legend and makes it concrete, using a visible symbol to protect the community by directing behavior. The Piasa's image was a boundary line painted in osher and fear, a permanent reminder that some sights are meant to turn you away, not draw you in. What does it say about a truth when the only safe way to handle it is to paint its portrait on a wall for everyone to avoid? That same theme of a divine mistake carved into living flesh echoes in the deep river systems of South Africa. The Grootslang is a creature born from an error so profound the gods themselves tried to erase it. Its very name means great snake, but this description barely scratches the surface. According to the lore, when the world was new, the gods were experimenting. They created the Grootslang as a single being, giving it the massive strength and cunning of an elephant fused with the powerful, coiling body of a gigantic serpent. They soon realized their terrible mistake. They had crafted a creature of near-perfect power and intelligence, a being too formidable to be allowed to exist. In a panic, they attempted to destroy their creation, splitting its form into two separate species, the elephant and the snake. But the legend says one original Grootslang escaped, hiding itself away in a labyrinth of deep, water-filled caves known as the Wonder Hole. There it grew ancient and immensely wise, and it began to collect a treasure beyond human comprehension, a hoard of the most perfect diamonds the earth has ever produced. This origin makes the Grootslang doubly forbidden. It is first a living fossil of divine imperfection, a reminder that even the gods can blunder, creating monsters they cannot control. To seek it out is to go looking for a truth the creators wanted buried, a flaw in the cosmic blueprint. Second, it is the guardian of forbidden wealth. The diamonds it hoards are not just gems, they are a test of human avarice. The stories are very clear. Those who venture into its domain in search of treasure simply vanish. The Grootslang does not just kill them, it is said to drown them in the deep pools or drag them into the darkest recesses of its cave, a fate that erases all trace of the greedy. This creature represents a danger that is both external and internal. Its physical power is undeniable, but the true trap is the human heart. The Grootslang preys on our lust for wealth, using the glitter of diamonds as the perfect bait for the foolish and the ambitious. It is the ultimate punishment for greed, a living, breathing lesson that some treasures are locked away for a reason. To know of the Grootslang is to be warned against reaching for a prize that was never meant for mortal hands, a prize protected by the original mistake of the universe itself. This idea of a treasure too dangerous to possess leads us to a different kind of lore, one that uses not greed, but the promise of paradise to ensnare its victims. The glittering hoard of the Grootslang lures with earthly greed, but the sea holds a different kind of terror, one that hunts not for treasure, but for the very breath in your lungs. From the Solomon Islands comes the Adaro, a spirit that transforms the open ocean from a realm of risk into a domain of intelligent, personal malice. Imagine a being with the sleek, powerful body of a shark and the upper torso of a man, but with a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth and a dorsal fin sprouting from its head. This is the Adaro, and it does not simply swim. It rides the waterspouts that dance across the surface of the sea, using them as highways between the physical world and the spirit realm. Their weapon of choice is as bizarre as it is deadly. They are known to hunt by hurling poisonous flying fish like living arrows. A single strike from one of these enchanted projectiles could bring a swift, painful death or a lingering, wasting sickness to any sailor unlucky enough to be targeted. This is not the random danger of a storm or a rogue wave. This is a calculated attack. The knowledge of the Adaro was essential for any sailor navigating those waters, a crucial part of their survival lore. Yet this knowledge was also profoundly forbidden, not because it was secret, but because of the devastating world view it forced upon a seafaring people. To accept the Adaro was to accept that the ocean was not just a vast, indifferent force of nature. It was a consciously hostile realm, populated by spirits that did not merely tolerate humans, but actively watched for them, hunted them, and took pleasure in their suffering. This shifts the entire perspective of the natural world. A storm is a challenge to be weathered. A large wave is an obstacle to be navigated. But an Adaro is a predator with a will, an enemy that chooses you. This forbidden truth meant a sailor could never feel truly alone on the open water, because the solitude was an illusion, broken by the chilling realization that something was always watching from the swirling depths, waiting for its chance to strike. The sea holds predators with intent, but perhaps the most unnerving evil is one that has shed its own body entirely. From the deep forests of Iroquois legend come the flying heads, beings whose terror lies in their brutal simplicity. They are exactly what their name suggests, disembodied, giant heads that soar through the night sky, their tangled hair streaming behind them like dark smoke, and their eyes burning with a ravenous hunger. These are not mere spirits, they are physical, tangible horrors, often born from the severed heads of particularly wicked or powerful individuals. A person's malevolence, it was believed, could be so potent that it refused to die with them, instead reanimating their own head into a new, predatory form. This is the ultimate forbidden knowledge, the potential for human evil to transcend death itself. The flying head is not a ghost, it is a transformation, a person's sin made flesh and set loose upon the world. Its entire existence is dedicated to pure, gluttonous consumption. Legends describe it descending upon camps and villages, devouring everything in its path, be it stored food, livestock, or people. It is a force of vengeance and insatiable appetite, a permanent, roaming consequence for a life lived in wickedness. This creature challenges our most fundamental understanding of life and death. We comfort ourselves with the idea that death is an end, a final boundary that contains a person's actions and misdeeds. The flying head shatters that comfort. It proposes that evil can be so concentrated, so powerful, that it breaks free of its mortal shell, becoming a self-sustaining entity that continues to plague the living. To know of the flying head is to accept a terrifying possibility that the consequences of a sinful life might not be confined to spiritual judgment, but could literally take flight, haunting the world in a grotesque and unstoppable form. It forces us to wonder if malevolence can truly become immortal, forever hungry, and forever searching for its next meal. The horror of a disembodied head that consumes everything in its path is a terror of pure physical appetite. But what if a creature's method was not to destroy, but to patiently and eerily remake its victim in its own image? Deep within the rich tapestry of Australian Aboriginal mythology lies the Yara-ma-yha-who, a being whose strangeness is perhaps more unsettling than any act of raw violence. This is not a giant beast or a demonic force. It appears as a small, red-skinned man with an oversized head and a mouth that lacks teeth, lined instead with powerful, suction-cupped discs. It is a predator of exhaustion and opportunity, not of strength. The Yara-ma-yha-who does not chase its prey. It waits, hanging from the branches of fig trees in the quietest parts of the outback, for a lone, weary traveler to rest in the shade below. Then it drops. It does not tear or claw. It uses its suction-cupped hands and feet to hold on, and its strange mouth to drain the person's blood, leaving them weak and disoriented. But this is only the beginning of the horror. The creature then swallows its victim whole. After a time, it regurgitates them, alive but changed. The person is slightly shorter, their skin tinged with a reddish hue, and their own nature subtly altered. This process repeats each time the victim is consumed and brought back. They become less themselves and more like the thing that caught them, until their humanity is entirely erased and a new Yara-ma-yha-who is born. This is why the knowledge of this creature is so deeply forbidden. It represents a violation of the natural order that is chilling in its passivity. There is no rage, no battle, no glorious struggle. There is only a slow, inevitable, and eerily quiet assimilation. The terror is not in being killed, but in being transformed into the very monster that preyed upon you, losing your identity in a cycle of grotesque rebirth. The Yara-ma-yha-who is the ultimate predator of patience, a being that turns the act of rest and recovery into the moment of your undoing. It forces a terrifying question: is there any fate worse than death, than being remade into the source of your own fear? That slow, quiet transformation by the Yara-ma-yha-who is a horror that reshapes its victim's very being. But some omens do not change you, they simply announce an end. From the mists of Japanese sea lore glides the 17th forbidden creature, the Bake-kujira. This is no ordinary whale, but a ghostly, colossal skeleton, its white bones moving silently through the water with no flesh to hold them together. It is a specter of the deep, often seen on foggy, moonless nights, drifting just beneath the surface, accompanied by a host of unnatural, spectral birds and fish. The true terror of the Bake-kujira is not in any act of violence. It does not attack boats, it does not roar, it simply passes by, a silent, impossible vision. Its appearance is the omen itself, a herald of curses, famine, and devastating plagues for the coastal villages that witness it. To see the Bake-kujira is to receive a message you cannot answer, a warning for which there is no defense. This creature is forbidden knowledge because it embodies inescapable doom. There is no spear that can pierce its bones, no offering that can appease its passage. It is not a predator, it is a symbol. Its presence means that misfortune has already been set in motion, a predestined tragedy now sailing toward your shore. The Bake-kujira shifts the entire concept of a forbidden creature from something you can fight or flee into a spectral sign of a fate you are powerless to alter. It forces a confrontation with the most chilling form of terror, the kind that comes without anger or malice, but with the cold, indifferent certainty of a turning page. What do you do when the monster is not an enemy to be defeated, but a clock ticking down to a disaster you already see coming? While the spectral wail announces a doom you cannot fight, the 18th creature terrifies by rejecting all reason. From the misty mountains of northern Spain, the Cugul is a monster of pure anatomical chaos. It has 3 arms, not 2 or 4, but 3, sprouting from a body that ends in no legs at all. Its face is a nightmare of imbalance, with a single, central eye and 5 full rows of teeth crammed into a lipless mouth, and it has no nose. This is not a design born of evolution or divine intent. It is a jumble, a creature that seems to have been assembled from the discarded parts of other beasts, a living, breathing mistake. The Cugul's forbidden nature is rooted in this profound absurdity. It attacks livestock and snatches unprotected children, yes, but its true danger is not merely in its actions. The true horror is in its form. To witness the Cugul is to see the rulebook of life itself torn to shreds. Our minds are built to recognize patterns, to categorize, to understand the logic of a predator's form. A wolf has 4 legs for running, sharp teeth for tearing. A hawk has wings for soaring, keen eyes for hunting. Every part has a purpose. The Cugul has no such purpose. What is the function of a 3rd arm when you have no legs to move with? What is the evolutionary advantage of 5 rows of teeth in a creature that seems to defy every law of biology? It presents a form that is terrifyingly inefficient, a chaotic assemblage that should not be able to live, let alone hunt. This is the fear of the nonsensical, a monster that is unsettling precisely because it makes no logical sense. It challenges our most basic assumption that the natural world, even in its dangers, operates on a set of understandable principles. The Cugul is a walking contradiction, a being that whispers a terrifying possibility, that reality itself might have cracks, and through those cracks, things that simply should not be can sometimes crawl. The gods of Asgard themselves tried to hide from a creature born in their own halls. Fenrir, the monstrous wolf, was not a beast from some dark frontier, but a child of chaos raised among the divine. His very existence was a forbidden truth, a living prophecy of such cataclysmic finality that even the all-seeing Odin could not stare it down. The Aesir gods raised the wolf cub themselves, a decision born of either foolish arrogance or a desperate attempt to control the inevitable. They watched in growing dread as Fenrir grew, not just in size but in power and cunning, until his gaping jaws could scrape the sky and the earth below. This was no mere animal, it was destiny given fangs and fur. The defining moment of his terror came when the gods resolved to bind him. They presented Fenrir with chains, each time claiming it was a test of his strength. He broke them with ease. Finally, they commissioned the dwarves to craft a fetter, but this was no ordinary chain. It was a ribbon, seemingly soft and delicate, woven from impossible things: the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. This magical creation, Gleipnir, was the only thing that could hold him. Yet Fenrir, sensing the trickery, would only consent to be bound if one of the gods placed a hand in his mouth as a pledge of good faith. The god Tyr, the bravest of them all, stepped forward and laid his right hand in the wolf's jaws. When the wolf found he could not break the silken ribbon, he closed his mouth and lost his hand. This was the price of containing a forbidden truth, a permanent, bloody sacrifice to delay the end. Fenrir is the embodiment of a fate so absolute that it can be chained but never broken. He is the monster in the basement of the universe, the problem the gods created but could not solve, a doom they knew was coming and still could not prevent. His binding was a temporary stay of execution, for the prophecy declared that at Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, he would break free and devour Odin himself. The knowledge of Fenrir is the most terrifying kind, the certainty of a loss so great that even the divine are powerless to stop it. What do you do when the monster is not an enemy to be defeated, but the final chapter of your own story? Even the most primal human instinct, the urge to protect a child, can be twisted into a deadly trap. In the dense, shadowy jungles of the Philippines, the Tiyanak waits, a creature born from the most tragic of circumstances. This is the spirit of a child who died before it could receive baptism, its soul unable to move on to its intended rest. It wanders the border between worlds, not with a monstrous roar, but with the most heartbreaking sound imaginable, the plaintive, lonely cry of an infant. It uses this perfect disguise to appeal to the very core of our compassion. A traveler, hearing what sounds like an abandoned baby, feels a powerful, almost irresistible pull to help, to rescue, to comfort. The moment they reach down and pick up the seemingly helpless child, the illusion shatters. The innocent form transforms in their arms into something ancient, fanged, and vicious. The Tiyanak attacks with a sudden, ferocious strength, often draining the life from the very person who sought only to offer aid. This creature is forbidden knowledge of the most insidious kind. To know of the Tiyanak is to be forced to confront a terrible conflict within yourself. It weaponizes empathy, turning our greatest strength into our most fatal weakness. The law forces a devastating question upon you. What do you do when you hear a child crying in the dark? Do you follow your heart and risk a horrific death? Or do you harden your soul, turn away, and live with the possibility that you abandoned a truly innocent life? This is a psychological wound, a piece of knowledge that fundamentally damages your ability to trust the world. It teaches you that the most pure and sympathetic facade can hide a predator that feasts on kindness itself. The Tiyanak is not just a monster, it is a lesson in the unbearable price of survival when compassion becomes the bait. The Tiyanak preys upon our deepest instinct to nurture, but what if the ultimate horror is not a corrupted child, but an entire race of corrupted ancestors? The Fomorians of Irish myth were not mere monsters. They were the original, brutal rulers of the land, a race of chaotic beings who embodied the untamed and hostile world itself. They were the chthonic powers, the ancient ones who rose from the soil and the sea, and their forms were a direct reflection of their nature. They were misshapen giants, some with a single arm and a single leg, others with the heads of goats or other beasts. Their king, Balor, possessed a single, massive eye that, when opened, could unleash a destructive power so vast it could decimate entire armies. This was not a world of heroes and elegant gods, but a primordial battlefield where the Fomorians represented the raw, unforgiving chaos of nature. Their knowledge was forbidden not because it was secret, but because it was a past that civilization had to actively forget and overcome. They were the living memory of a time when the world was wild, deformed, and ruled by powers that had no concept of justice, agriculture, or art. The great mythological battles between the Fomorians and the Tuatha De Danann, the tribe of the gods, were not simple fights between good and evil. They were cosmic struggles between order and chaos, between the cultivated world the gods sought to build and the raw, destructive wilderness the Fomorians embodied. To remember the Fomorians too fondly, to seek their ancient primal power, was to risk inviting that chaos back into the world. They are the forbidden foundation, the brutal reality that every culture must bury beneath its cities and its laws. They remind us that the order we take for granted was won in a terrible, ancient war against a world that did not want us, a war against the very essence of a nature that is red in tooth and claw. What does it say about our own history that our oldest stories tell of a battle to lock away the wild and deformed rulers of the earth? The rebellion of the Fomorians was a war against order itself, but the 22nd creature embodies a rebellion born in the cold, silent laboratories of the cosmos. The Shoggoth from H.P. Lovecraft's terrifying vision is a being of pure biological nightmare, a shapeless, bubbling mass of iridescent black ooze that can sprout temporary eyes, mouths, and limbs at will. These horrors were not born from natural evolution or divine whim. They were engineered, biomechanical slaves created by the vastly intelligent but arrogant alien race known as the Elder Things. Designed to build their underwater cities and serve their every need, the Shoggoths were the ultimate tools, programmable and powerful, but the tool eventually developed a mind of its own. Over eons, the Shoggoths achieved a dim, terrible consciousness, and they rebelled. They turned against their creators in a war of monstrous attrition, becoming mindless, rampaging engines of destruction that remembered only the echo of their own servitude. The famous, chilling cry that echoes through the frozen ruins at the Mountains of Madness, Tekeli is the mindless, babbling sound they make, a haunting relic of a language they no longer understand. The Shoggoth is forbidden knowledge because it represents the ultimate horror of creation rebelling against the Creator. It is the slave that achieved a monstrous, chaotic form of freedom, a force of pure, undirected power that now serves only its own primal, inscrutable impulses. This entity is a stark warning about the profound danger of playing God, of creating life that you cannot ultimately control or contain. The terror is not just in its form, but in its origin story, a truth that feels dangerously relevant in any age where humanity itself toys with artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. The Shoggoth asks us a terrifying question: what happens when the things we build to serve us finally decide they no longer need a master? That final, monstrous question left by the Shoggoth lingers in the air, a chilling testament to creations that outlive their creators. Yet this entire terrifying journey through 22 forbidden creatures points to a far deeper mystery, one that lies within our own minds. Why do these specific legends, these warnings about things we were never meant to see, hold such an irresistible, enduring power over us? The answer is woven into the very fabric of human psychology. We are hardwired with a powerful curiosity, an instinct that is perversely amplified the moment we are told not to look. This is the forbidden fruit effect in its purest form. The very act of declaring something off limits transforms it into an object of intense fascination, making the knowledge we are denied the very knowledge we crave most. These stories of hidden monsters are the ultimate forbidden fruit, dangling from the tree of myth, and we are compelled to reach for them. But this psychological pull is only one side of the coin. On the other, these creatures function as brilliant, if terrifying, societal safeguards. They are cautionary tales carved from fear, designed to enforce moral codes and keep communities safe. The Wendigo was a stark warning against cannibalism during harsh winters. The Aswang enforced social norms through paranoia, ensuring people stayed close to the group after dark. Piasa bird's image on the cliff was a literal sign saying, "Danger, keep out." These legends used the language of monsters to protect people from very real threats, both environmental and social. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung might have seen these forbidden beings as perfect manifestations of what he called the shadow. This is the dark, repressed, and often frightening part of the collective unconscious, a deep well of instincts and potential that society forces us to deny in ourselves. We cannot easily confront the abstract concept of our own inner chaos, our greed, our paranoia, or our capacity for evil. So we project these qualities outward, giving them form and shape and fangs. The Wendigo is not just a monster, it is the embodiment of insatiable greed. The Tianak is the fear that our compassion will be our undoing. The Gorgon is the terror of a truth so potent it annihilates the witness. These creatures give a face to the formless anxieties that haunt us about death, betrayal, and the fragile limits of our own perception. They are not merely stories told around a fire. They are the mind's ancient, desperate method for wrestling with the unthinkable, for drawing a circle around the abyss and giving it a name so that we might, for a little while, feel safer inside the circle. Our journey through these 22 forbidden creatures uncovers a profound and unsettling pattern in the human psyche. Across every continent and every epoch, we have drawn the same terrifying line in the sand, marking certain truths as too dangerous to behold. These entities are far more than just campfire tales. They are the guardians at the very edge of our collective understanding, the living warnings etched into the bedrock of our cultures. They speak to primal fears of cosmic insignificance, of nature's intelligent malice, and of the predatory darkness that can awaken within our own hearts. Each one is a locked door, and the legend is the sign hammered onto it that reads, "Do not open." The Nephilim warn us against reaching for a power that corrupts absolutely. The Wendigo shows us the monster that starvation and greed can create. Cthulhu represents a reality so vast our minds cannot hold it. The Tianak weaponizes our deepest empathy, while the Shoggoth embodies the terror of our own creations turning against us. Together, they form a mosaic of our most profound anxieties. Yet in studying these forbidden things, we ultimately learn very little about the monsters themselves. The true revelation is about us, the creators. We are the ones who imagined these boundaries. We are the ones who felt the need to build these cages of myth around truths too potent to be set free. These legends are a testament to our own self-awareness, a recognition that our curiosity has limits and that some knowledge comes with a price too terrible to pay. They are the stories we tell to keep ourselves safe from the abyss, even as we cannot help but peer into its depths. So the final, lingering question is not what other monsters are waiting to be found, but what new forbidden truths are we, right now, in the process of creating? What modern legends will our descendants whisper about, warning each other never to look too closely? The map of the forbidden is never complete. It is constantly being redrawn by the fears of every new generation. If you have a creature from myth or a local legend that chilled you to your core, share it in the comments below. Let us continue this exploration together, and remember to subscribe for more journeys into the heart of mystery.